Welcome, fellow long-distance travelers. So today we are going to be unpacking my Pan America after I just returned home from a 7,000-mile cross-country trip. We rode across the United States of America and back in 16 days. We covered 17 states and 7,000 miles. It was a really incredible trip. So we are going to physically unpack the motorcycle, and we're also going to kind of mentally unpack the trip just a little bit. And I'm doing this mainly because I have to apologize. Usually before I leave, before a big trip, I do a live stream packing party where we pack the bike and discuss what things I will inevitably end up using versus not using. But this time, it's going to be really fun because we're going to actually go over the things that I did not use and that I dragged around the country for absolutely no reason, and hopefully save you guys from making the same mistakes I did, and learning from my experience, because I've been on many very long distance trips on my motorcycles, and I pack differently every single time because I'm just not that consistent. But this is the first trip I did on the Pan America, and it had some major pros when it came to packing. So we're just going to dive into this thing. The bike is packed up. I haven't touched it yet. Right off the bat is my vented coat. I wore this for a majority of the trip. So we're gonna make a pile over here of things I actually used, and I have this little bin that we're gonna fill up and see how much stuff I didn't really need to take with me, because there's definitely quite a few items I didn't need to take. So the way I did this is I have the 3 saddlebags, panniers, cases, boxes, whatever you want to call them. I think the technical term on an adventure bike is a pannier, but I've caught myself calling them everything from pannier to saddlebag to box to case, whatever. So I don't really care what you call them, but I got 3 of those, and then I have my 2 dry bags, and I have a tank bag, but we're going to break down everything here in a minute. So the dry bags are terrific. I've had this dry bag forever, and this year I bought a little smaller one, and they literally just clip together. So the only one that's secured on the bike is the bottom one. The top one's secured to the bottom one. So it's just 4 snaps. And this bag comes right off. So I'm going to open it up and show you guys what I have in these bags. Now, the majority of the contents in these bags I did use, if not every day, very close to it. So I've 2 different flannels because it was a long trip. I do like the long sleeve shirts every once in a while. I use those, so they're in the used pile. Rain gear, pants, and jacket. I did use these guys. Fortunately, I didn't have to use them a lot. I only ended up being in 50 miles of rain. It was on the very first day. It was incredible. This trip was spectacular. So we're not just going to unpack physically, we're going to unpack mentally a little bit. Being able to do that many miles across the country with absolutely no rain, like having perfect weather, was terrific. Of course, we had a couple days with some heavy wind, and we had some really hot days, specifically in the Mojave Desert. But not having to deal with rain was a blessing. We dodged it a few times, which was awesome. I'm not going to complain, but it did make us nervous a little bit. So I did need to use the rain gear. I did use it. It's over there. I would have brought it anyway regardless. In the future, I would like to get some adventure gear that's just waterproof, and it would save some weight, and it would save time from having to don rain gear. And rain gear is just not comfortable. You know, for those of you who've ridden in rain gear for a long distance, you know how that goes. So the next thing I have in this bag, again, this bag is just strictly riding gear. That's why it's on the top, is a coat, a non-vented coat. I mean, it has optional vents, but this is a real deal coat. Now, I did use it once, so it's going in the used pile, but I've learned I did not need to use it. I could have gotten away with just like a sweater underneath my vented coat, would have been fine for the morning that I needed that. So if I'm going to travel again in late July, early August, I'm probably not going to bring the big coat again. I just really didn't need it. So also have my vest, which keeps accumulating patches. I always sworn I would never be a patch guy, but as I go further into more destinations and I acquire more patches, I wear them a little proudly. I don't have any dumb patches on my vest, you know, little sayings or mottos. They're destinations or they're roads I've ridden. So I'm starting to wear that with a little more pride occasionally. So I did wear it, is in there. Back protector for the vented jacket. It was in there. I did end up taking it out when it was 118 degrees. Sue me. All right. Gloves. So this was just like a backup pair of gloves. I did use these at one point. They're in the used pile. Winter gloves. Now, last year, our adventures took us to Beartooth Pass, which was incredible. Beartooth Pass was like 30 degrees at the top, at the summit. There was still snow there. It was incredible. I wore these last year, so I brought them with me this time. My route this time, even though we went through some pretty tall mountains and peaks, I never needed these. So I never put these on. I did use my heated grips one morning with my regular gloves, and maybe it's because last year I didn't have heated grips. But I didn't need these. Didn't wear them. They're in the box. All right. I feel like I could have very comfortably got through the trip without them. The other thing taking up a bunch of space and weight is big boy boots. A second pair of boots. I did use these. They ended up being invaluable. Listen, if you could afford to bring a second pair of boots, do it. All right? Because if my primary boots had gotten wet, I had more comfortable, looser boots, mountaineering boots that I wore, especially in the hot and the highway days. But when I was in the Southwest doing some dirt roads and things like that, especially on the Pan Am, because I'm a short guy, my big boy boots were very nice, and I definitely would take them again. And the last thing in here are rain booties. I did technically wear them, so they're in the wore them pile. That's it for this bag. That's all that's in there. All right. There's actually quite a bit in there for how small that bag is. And we pretty much used almost everything out of that bag. So far we just have a pair of gloves in the white box. But I promise there's definitely stuff that I didn't need. So the next thing we'll break down is our big bag here. Now last year during the packing party, I got screamed at by you guys because I was using bungee cords. Everyone recommended these guys. All right, I'm not associated with any brands, but these are rock straps. And I will tell you free of charge that they were life-changing compared to bungee cords. So those of you who yelled at me last year, I got rock straps. You don't have to yell at me anymore. Only two of them held this bag on, and then that bag held that bag on, and it was a flawless system that worked effortlessly the entire trip. Great idea. Awesome investment. So this bag contains my camping equipment. So on this trip, we ended up sleeping in a bed, a hotel or a guest house or something, I think 5 nights out of 15. So that means that 10 nights we camped. So everything in this bag became pretty invaluable at one point or another. First of which is my sleeping bag, 30-degree sleeping bag. This is a cheapo, probably literally from Walmart. So it's big, it doesn't pack very well on a motorcycle, but it came in handy a couple nights when it was really cold, especially in Yellowstone National Park and up in Utah around Salt Lake City. It was cold those nights. I needed that sleeping bag. The second thing I have in here is a little camping blanket. Now, I did use this as an insulating layer. In Yellowstone, it was like 38 degrees that night. So it was cold. But the rest of the time I didn't use it as a blanket, I used it as a pillow. Can you tell? So this kind of doubles as a pillow or could be used as a blanket. I loved that idea. It is big and it sucks to pack, but it worked out really well. I used it. Next thing in here is my tent. 2-man tent. Alright, it's this big, it fits in there. I did use the tent. Now, out of the 10 nights spent camping, I only stayed in the tent twice. The rest of the time was spent in my hammock. The hammock was amazing. This is the first time I've done like actual hammock camping. This particular hammock was amazing. The whole hammock packs in here with the tree straps. So straps and hammock right there. Now, in order for the hammock to work successfully, I also needed this guy, which is a bug net. All right, thanks to a new friend of mine, Jake, who I met in Nebraska. He actually sold me this bug net right on the spot because I didn't have one. He was like, oh, look, this amateur hammock guy does not know what he's doing. So thank you, Jake, because I used it many times, and it saved my rear end quite a bit from being bitten to death. Last thing in here is an air pad, sleeping pad for the tent. I did use this the 2 nights. Well, one of the nights I stayed in the tent. No, wait a minute. I take that back. We stayed in the tent 3 nights, right? Yeah, 3 nights we slept in the tent. So I used this 2 of the nights. I ended up buying this mid-trip because my original one developed a hole on night number 1 of the excursion. So picked that one up. It's great. It doesn't have a hand pump in it like my old one did. So it's a good old-fashioned blow it up, you know, blow it up type deal, but it's not too bad, and it was comfortable. It worked. Nowhere near as good as a hammock, though. Get yourself a hammock. Regardless. The last thing in this bag is a camp chair. And no, I didn't need to bring this, but I use this. Especially for like staying 2 nights in Sturgis. You kind of move in when you're there staying at the rally. And you know, you strip your bike down, you kind of put all your stuff away. It's nice to have that little chair, wake up in the morning. I also use it in some other spots just to kind of rest for a minute, rejuvenate. That chair is extremely comfortable for its price, and I would bring it again. I would. Sometimes I travel with 2 chairs, but I didn't need 2 chairs this time, so only 1 chair. And that's it for this bag. It's empty. So that's all my camping gear, all my riding gear, pretty much, for the most part. Now, as we get into the panniers, and before we do, to just break down mentally a little bit more, you know, some of the places I went on this trip was just absolutely incredible. So the route we took was out of northeastern PA. We just cooked across Interstate 80 for the first 2.5 days. I mean, we cruised through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and eastern Colorado. And then once we got into Colorado, we went through the San Juan mountain range, rode the $1 Million Highway. Terrifying, but amazing. Stopped in at Silverton, Colorado. Really glad we did. Awesome little town. And then, of course, we also went down out of the San Juan Mountains through Durango and into the Navajo territory, where we went to the Four Corners Monument, and then to Monument Valley, Utah. We camped in Monument Valley, Utah. Incredible. Then we moved on to LA. So don't worry, I'll keep going because the trip's not done. But let's talk a little more about what we got in here. So out of the 3 panniers, they're kind of devised in a certain way. This one here is just solely clothing. So I could have done laundry on the trip. Didn't necessarily want to do laundry while I was on the trip. I was going to, it just never ended up happening. But I had enough clothes that I didn't have to, be too scummy throughout the trip. But if I had done laundry, I probably could have even packed less. But it's hard when you're banging through miles and stuff like that. Everything in here is clothes, my toiletries, my little quick dry towel, which is incredible to have. Used all of it, except for one thing. I brought 2 pairs of denim jeans. I did wear one at points, but I did not ever end up needing both. So that was a mistake on my hand, and I kind of knew that when I did it. Other things I have in here is a nudie, a sweater, which is great for the cooler temperatures, 1 pair of shorts, 1 pair of sweatpants. The rest is basically socks, underwear, and t-shirts. All right, just enough to get through the whole trip. And I think there's 1 or 2 t-shirts I didn't use, but I ended up acquiring a couple t-shirts along the way. Of course, that happens. So otherwise, I would have used them all. So we're considering all the clothing used except for that 1 pair of jeans. Didn't need it. Brought it for nothing. Now, the top case. The top case is mainly equipment for you guys. It's all my camera equipment charging gear, an extra hat we picked up on the road. But my ball cap goes in here. Camera stuff. There's a notepad in here. Fun on Wheels stickers. You know, if I ever meet any of you guys out there, you get a sticker. Alright, so I bring them with me. Camera gear. Charging equipment. So basically everything in this top case is for filming. So if you don't plan on filming your trips, you have a whole entire empty case on your hands. Other thing I have in here is I just shoved all my paperwork from the various places I was at. I like to keep that stuff because I'm weird. But they fit in there real nice. We kept everything good. Another bottle of water in here. Again, a notebook. One thing that took up space in here I didn't need is this. This is a little portable charger. You know, when you're doing trips solo, you kind of want to be equipped for anything because you're by yourself. But the reality is I never used this. I'm sure if I had needed it, I would have been really glad I had it, but I really didn't end up needing it, all right? Just have a little more faith in your motorcycle next time. I brought that for nothing. It's also really heavy. One thing in here that became extremely valuable is this little kit, which is, I call it my vision kit. So, if you can't tell, I have really poor vision. And, you know, it's pretty important to be able to see while you ride a motorcycle, so in this kit, I have a spare set of glasses, prescription glasses, some odds and ends to go with the glasses, a little repair kit, and then I have 2 little bottles, one to clean my glasses and my visor on my helmet, and also a little bottle of Rain-X. So this kit got used a bajillion times, especially riding through the north and the northeast. We were cleaning the visor from bugs a million times, so this was invaluable to have. And that's essentially this box. You know, some other things that were in here that you don't get to see right now was a tripod for cameras. You guys are sitting on the tripod right now. Just a bunch of extra junk you have to bring if you want to document your adventures. So, pretty much camera equipment, right? Now that leaves the third box. And the third box is the junk box. This is full of a bunch of things that I could have potentially needed but didn't use, and just a bunch of odds and ends. So we're going to break this box down because it was pretty much the most worthless box and maybe the heaviest. So in here, a microfiber towel. All right. I used that at some point. We're going to consider that used. These 3 meals. So these are little dry meals that you would use when camping, and I kind of figure, you know, maybe I'll find a nice little rustic campsite and, you know, do something real cool like sit down and eat one of these. But another reason I brought them was like, what if I break down and I need some food somewhere or something? Both of those things just didn't become a reality. Now, in the future, if I go on a trip and I really want to have one of these as a meal when I sit down to camp, then I'll bring them. But as like an emergency backup for food, I think like a granola bar would have sufficed to replace these, and they would have taken up a lot less space. They're going in the not used pile. I drug them around the country for no damn reason. And speaking of rustic camping, you know, just to get a little further into our journey, after Monument Valley, Utah, which was a pretty rustic campground, actually it wasn't a campground at all. It was some gentleman's piece of property. They call it the Sleeping Bear camping area, I believe it is. Highly recommended if you ever find yourself in Monument Valley. It was beautiful to watch the sunset over the monuments and then rise again. Gorgeous. Captured all that on film, and you guys are going to be able to see that very soon, so just stay patient with me. But after Monument Valley, we went through the Grand Canyon. All right, Grand Canyon was absolutely spectacular. Moving on from there, we actually rode into LA, went through Los Angeles, Hollywood. We rode down the Sunset Strip at sunset and ended up at the Santa Monica Pier. The intention was to camp on the beach at the Pacific Ocean, but we got there real late and I had a really emotional moment. So we ended up in a bedroom that night in a hotel, which seemed to work out very perfectly. From there, we moved on and went to Las Vegas, and then out of Vegas, we rode through Teton National Park, and this amazing scenic route near Salt Lake City. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Incredible. From there, we went up into the Grand Tetons, and then into Yellowstone. We camped in Yellowstone National Park for a night. It was just absolutely spectacular. From there, we rolled into the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, the 85th in 2025. Spent a couple nights there. Incredible. The rally is always terrific every time. And then rolled back across the breadbasket of America and back to northeastern Pennsylvania. Again, 16 days. It was an incredible, incredible journey, and I can't wait to show you guys in more detail. But I'm still processing it myself because it was so awesome. All the different locations we stopped at, the different cultures we seen, all the things I learned. Was very naive about some of the cultures in the area and the watershed and about forest fires. You know, we were riding through different forest fires and getting to see them at different angles from different states. It was really incredible. So it was a really big learning experience for me, and just really amazing to be out on the open road. But when we were out there, we brought too much stuff with us, and it's all in this case. So the rest of what we have in here is a first aid kit. Now, one of the things I ended up battling that was an extra challenge for me on this trip was I got an eye infection about 3 days in. And so this became kind of invaluable, like cleaning my eye and trying to get it serviced, yeah, like a machine. But servicing myself, you know, I broke down. No, my bike never broke down, but I did, and I needed my toolkit to help me. Ultimately, we ended up getting some prescription eye drops in Bullhead City, Arizona. I think so. Laughlin, Nevada area. So this became invaluable. Goes over there in the used pile. You definitely want to have some form of first aid kit with you. You never know what you're going to run into. Now, here's the thing I definitely didn't use. So this is sunscreen. If you guys know me, I don't like exposing myself to the sun for long periods of time. All right, it just drains the hell out of you. However, this big can of sunscreen was not needed. So I was covered head to toe every day in gear, staying protected from the sun. So I didn't need to apply a boatload of sunscreen. I needed it for spots like my nose, all right, things that are still exposed to the sun. But I have a little baby one that was in my toiletry kit. That's all I ended up needing. I didn't need this big can. I brought it for no reason. It goes in the box. All right. Now, if you're going to be riding across the country in a tank top and you don't want to get burnt to death, maybe you're going to need a big can like that. It's up to you, really. But, you know, one thing in here I did use is my camping fan. So it's not only a light, but also a fan. So it's a little rechargeable light fan. This thing's awesome to have. This is all you need at your campsite for lighting, and then it does double as a fan. It was a cheapo little unit, no name on it or anything like that. And it works as a backup battery bank, so you could charge other stuff off of it if you absolutely needed to. So we definitely use that. One thing in here we didn't use, but I probably would have brought anyway, is some garbage bags. You know, not to take out the trash or anything like that, but if you needed to lay down somewhere, or you needed to cover something up, or it was starting to pour rain, or your tent sprung a leak, or who knows, some garbage bags can become very handy while on the road. So they were in here. This little cheap camping hatchet, I didn't need to chop any wood or anything like that. You know, I wasn't having campfires across the country. I was, you know, laying my head down to rest and doing some more miles the next day. But I did use this to hammer down some tent stakes a couple nights. So, you know, this is something good to have. Did use it. It goes in the used pile. One thing, if you are a motorcycle content creator, then you're going to have a boatload of charging cables all over the place. So, yeah, they're just in here. A bungee cord. So back to the guys busting my rear end about the straps last year. I didn't trust the straps at first, so I brought a bungee just in case. But you know what? I never ended up needing it. The straps didn't let me down. So the bungee cord never got used. Although it might be something useful in camp or something of that nature, but who knows. Bug spray, definitely use that. Highly recommended. Bring the bug spray. Now, going along with that camping food, I also brought a little camping stove. And this is something that snuck in there. I don't know how it did. But this is a little salt and pepper shaker. I didn't even know I had it. But the camping stove and the salt and pepper shaker. Never used them. Took up a boatload of space. Didn't need it. Again, did it give me peace of mind that, like, if I broke down in the middle of the desert, I would be able to make a meal? Yes. But did I really need, like, a 4-course meal if I'm broken down in the desert? No. Again, a granola bar could have sufficed. Lessons learned, right? That also comes along with this. A little cooking kit with dish and things of that nature. Didn't need it. Just took up a bunch of space. It kept falling apart. It was a pain in the butt the whole trip. I'm so glad it is no longer in this case. Might never go back in. Now, one thing that I luckily didn't end up using, but had, is my little toolkit. So, and I say little, some of you are probably laughing. So I have 3 essential components to the toolkit here. The first component is an air pump. I did end up using this, so I'm putting it in the used pile. It's always good to have. It works as a backup power bank. You can inflate your tires. I kept playing around with my tire pressure because I didn't like the way they were running, especially in the desert, the hot temperatures. So I'm glad I did have it. Did I need it? No. It's not like I ever got a flat tire and needed it. But if I had, it would have been invaluable. So I'm going to bring it with me in the future. Next thing is the Pan America specific toolkit that I bought online. I did use this. All right, we actually did do an oil change out on the road. And, you know, any other little adjustments or little breakdowns you might have ended up having, this is great. It also has, like, the big wrenches in it to do chain maintenance on the road. So this was invaluable. This got used. Now, my toolkit, and I'm not going to take you through everything that's in here because that could be its own video, but just to give you a little brief idea, there's stuff in here for chain maintenance, plug-in tires, tire plugs. I didn't need 30 tire plugs. If you need 30 tire plugs on a road trip, you might as well go home. But I had them in here. You know, just odds and ends of tools. One of the biggest items in here is the oil filter wrench. I knew I'd be changing my own oil, so this is pretty hefty and takes up some space. Unfortunately, I did not need it. But if I had needed it, it would have been invaluable. I'd bring it again. Now, this box still isn't empty, believe it or not. The last few items in here are the actual connectors for that jump box. Never needed it. There they go. All right. I mean, come on, folks. We ride motorcycles. Like, even if you have a dead battery, you could just pop start your bike. I know that's kind of a pain in the butt, but do you really need a jump pack? This is the first time I ever brought one with me, and mainly because I was very concerned over doing a solo trip on the Pan America, especially with all the scary, you know, bugs it has and how unreliable of a motorcycle it is. Do you sense my sarcasm? We're going to be doing an updated review about this bike and how it performed on the trip, but just to give you a little heads up, this bike didn't have a single hiccup along the trip. It had one little tiny thing, and that was mainly up here in the head, and we'll talk about that in the future. But I can tell you, just so that you all know right now, that I have a very newfound, very deep trust and bond with this Pan America. I have ridden twin cams and Milwaukee 8s all across the country. I've never taken a Pan America that far, and I was nervous because this is a 2022 and it doesn't have a single one of the factory gremlins fixed on it. I developed workarounds for a lot of those things, and we're going to break that down in its own video because this bike deserves it. But just so you guys listening today know, this bike has my utmost faith now. Utmost faith. It gave me less issues than my Street Glide has in the past. The last two things in here is some Ziploc baggies. I never ended up needing them, but boy, if you needed one of these, you needed to capture some oil or some water, or you need to stick some parts in it, or you needed, your phone was getting drenched, who knows. If you needed one of these, you needed one of those. Bring them with you. They take up no space or weight. Last thing in here is a Cush Drive rubber puck. That is a wear item on this bike, and it did wear out. I have a tremendous amount of play in my rear sprocket, and I was going to change that in Sturgis, but I ended up stripping a brake caliper bolt and couldn't get it replaced in time, so I milked it home, and we're going to do that here in the near future. But again, that's not really a breakdown item. That's a wear part, like changing brake pads. And on a bike like this, as powerful and torquey as it is, I'm not surprised I needed to change that out. The only thing we really have left is going to be the tank bag, right? So the tank bag became invaluable because I could stick filming equipment in there, could stick you guys in this pouch. I also kept like my toll tickets in here and my park passes and anything I needed to access quick. Also, especially my gloves and things of that nature went in there. Aside from the tank bag, the only other things loaded on here would be my two 1.3 gallon jugs on the front. Now, the one on your side of the bike was filled with gas, just in case I ended up needing it. I never did. The route I took, I was pretty comfortable with being able to get gas. In fact, I ended up knowing I had it there, and as the safety cushion became available in my head, I kept pushing my tank further and further to see how far I could get, knowing that I had that little backup there. But there was no stretch of road where I was like in danger of running out of gas, or at least it didn't feel that way. But the other one I had filled, I have one on the other side, it was full water, so 1.3 gallons of water. And for some of the, like the boondock camping we did, the 2 nights we did that, and some other occasions, that became invaluable. Having that whole gallon of water with you was really awesome. So I would do that again in the future. I know it limits you for the capacity of gasoline if you're trying to do one of those adventures where you're going to need the gas. But it all depends on your ride, right? So I'm not saying you need to pack the way I have. This isn't like a how to pack. This is how I packed. So just to give you guys an idea of what I did, and you could make that your own in the future, or let me know how you've done it in the past, because I'm sure a bunch of you have probably already ridden your motorcycle, probably even further distances than I did on this trip, and especially if you get into some different routes or going to Alaska or something of that nature, you might need that extra gasoline, and so you might sacrifice some of these things somewhere. But you know, this trip was life-changing. It was a huge milestone for me. It's something I've been planning for years. And it was not only really awesome to get to do it for my personal satisfaction, but in filming this trip, I have definitely found a new love of bringing you guys along for the journey. You are going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly when I drop this little documentary about what it really means to ride a motorcycle and to ride one across the continent, not once, but twice. You know, that is the reason I'm doing this, is to show you guys all the benefits that comes out of it. I learned so much about local history, culture in different areas. I ended up learning a lot about the Colorado watershed. I didn't intend on it, but I ended up riding through a majority of it, from the San Juan Mountains to the Grand Canyon. I visited the Hoover Dam. I was in Los Angeles, Nevada. So I learned a lot about those things. And just the learning moments, the people that I got to meet on this trip were incredible, and they were all so different and unique. And we're going to break all that down in one big documentary video, door to door, about this amazing, incredible journey across the country, through the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, and back home again. And I can't wait to show it to you guys, and I can't wait to do it again, bringing you guys with me, because I'm not done doing this. I'm just getting started. So if this is what you guys are into, if you like long haul, if you like learning while you're on a motorcycle, if you like getting into the nitty gritty of how it's done and why we do it, and just going along for some of these adventures, then stick around, you know, subscribe to the channel and watch in the future, because we're going to be doing this a lot. Especially from here on out. Now that I have multiple motorcycles equipped and ready to do this, boy, I just keep getting deeper and deeper, and I want to bring you guys with me and show you the benefits of all this, because it is a blast and extremely fulfilling. So yeah, again, I apologize we didn't have our little live packing party this time to leave, but this time you got a little more in-depth idea as to how I packed, why I packed, and what I did wrong. Yeah, so next time we'll probably do it completely differently, and I'll get to show you guys a whole other video of that. But until next time, I encourage you guys to get out there. If you're planning your big road trip, just go do it. You know, my saying more and more is just ride. Just go ride. All right? Get out there, ride your motorcycle, and if you want to ride across the country, I promise you, you can do it. And you can do it on a budget. I didn't spend a lot of money doing this, folks. I spent just the right amount of money. It was very comfortable. Again, you know, slept in bedrooms quite a few nights. Also did some amazing camping, and we did it all rather cheap, a lot cheaper than I probably could have gone to a vacation at my local beachfront house. So I encourage you, get out there, stay safe, but just ride. And until next time, we'll see you.